There are a lot of advisors who are taking advantage of the lack of knowledge of the merchant today. Anyone can be a self-proclaimed payment expert. Whatever is good for finance might be bad for compliance. No payment provider is coming to save you and set up the whole payment stack for you. And as we know, higher the risk, higher the profit. You can cut this out.
I'm not gonna cut this out.
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Welcome to Let's Talk Payments, the podcast where we talk about topics from the online payment industry. My name is David from eFlow. We help merchants finding reliable and sustainable payment solutions. And today we have Viktoria Soltesz, founder of PSP Angels. Many thanks for being with us today. We're going to talk about payment strategy, banking. There's a lot of topics we can and we will cover today. So thank you. Your original role, if I understand correctly, was more into tax advisory rather than payments. Please help us understand where you're coming from.
Well, sure. I started my career in Cyprus 20 years ago, a long, long time ago. Cyprus just joined the EU. And a lot of companies went to Cyprus because it was newly joined EU. They had euro and started to incorporate the company to optimize the taxes. So that was my role to help international companies moving funds around, set up the tax structure, set up the whole strategy behind. And as you know, Cyprus is a home for forex companies, investment companies, hedge funds. Later on, we had the crypto, which was not regulated. We had a lot of ICOs. So when my clients came to me more and more saying that, okay, I understand, Viktoria, that, the tax disappeared, but what are we going to do with the banks? What are we going to do with the payment provider? Somehow the funds get blocked. Where is my money? Why the bank is asking all these questions? Then I realized that, okay, I'm supposed to make decisions on certain things and I have no clue what's going on. And then the fintech industry started to speed up, and now we started to have the QR codes, the open banking, the crypto, the stable coin. So I found myself in a bit of a blur of like, okay, there are so many payment methods, but I don't really understand even the basic expressions of like what is a chargeback or a gateway. No one actually told me about that. So I thought that if I am like this, I'm sure that the other suffering merchant accountants there as well, and that's where I back. That's how I ended up with payment. I don't think that anyone wants to work in payments from birth. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to be a payment expert.
Yeah.
But you just like end up there, and that was my story.
Do you remember the moment that you might have first realized, okay, payments is a topic I need to focus on much more?
Yes, I used to work for the shipping company, and I remember the owner came in and he said that, you know what, this bank is asking way too many questions. Viktoria, put them in their place. It's my money, my rules. I'm not going to tell them that what am I using with my own money. I'm like, yeah, that is totally right. So called the bank, and I remember that they were asking a lot of documents, but I'm talking about 15, 20 years ago. And realized that, okay, this bank is really giving us a lot of headaches. So I called another bank and they had the same question, and I called another bank and they had the same question. Like, that is a problem. It's no longer I'm the customer, I have my rules, my money. It's more about that, hey, can you please work with me? Can you please handle my money? And I have to prove myself that I am legit. I am not cheating taxes. Everything is according to the book, because the bank has the upper hand. And that's when I realized the tables are really turning, and that was the moment where I said, okay, we need to look at this a bit more closer, because it's not what I got used to at the past.
And were you able to finally resolve that situation?
Yes, and I remember I was going through a lot of try and fail kind of situation. I remember there was one case when I sent to an account euro when they only accepted Hong Kong dollars, and I couldn't figure out what was going wrong and why the money doesn't arrive. How would you know, right? Or for example, when we use the SEPA account to send SWIFT transfers and it doesn't go through. So I think there are certain things that you have to go through personally and make mistakes to realize that, so That is the difference between different accounts. So that is why it's important that you're sending the relevant currency. And I think back at the day, it was much harder because we had no information. It was not like today, you're just doing something on an AI and you got more or less like at least some idea what's going on. We didn't know. We had to talk to the banker, and the banker had to explain that, yeah, what is a correspondent account? What is an intermediary account? And you're like, oh, okay, good to know. And that's the knowledge that you're taking further. But in a way that I learned, I'm sure that other professionals out there learned this in a hard way as well. But what are the gaps in your knowledge? Maybe you have not faced that problem and that's why you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. So that's why it's a big question mark I see here in the industry, that there is still a lot of misconception of like, when we are talking about, for example, gateway. I'm saying gateway, you might understand a completely different concept under that. And there is not that much of like a common understanding of standards. So that's how I ended up in this. I just trial and error, really.
Do you have any idea why the lack of standardization exists in payments? If you compare that to, I don't know, taxation or company setup, it looks to be much more standardized than payments.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. And I think this is a major problem. Because let's say that you're an investment advisor. You have to have a certificate to stop you to give bad advice to people and they're losing the money. However, today, anyone can be a self-proclaimed payment expert and start advocating for opening an account with this EMI or neobank or use this gateway without any kind of qualification. And at the end of the day, we are talking about money. We are advising to clients, hey, you need to trust this payment provider. You need to move your money through that technological provider. And there is no standardization. There are no certificates. There is no unified body who says, yes, you are right. No, you are not. Of course, you've got the financial regulation. But when it comes to actually using those solutions, tools, compliance setups, like it's a blur. And I think this is a problem because a lot of people are still taking advantage of the lack of the knowledge of the merchant. Hey, use me because I trust you. You know me. So, the industry is still very much based on trust, which is okay. But if you're running €1 million operation, like how far that trust goes, that I met you 3 times on a conference, I see that you've got a big booth, therefore I'm sending you $1 million. There is no concept of due diligence or of course you're testing the solution, but somehow it's still a massive blur of who to trust, who to avoid, what is good, what is not, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. So yeah, that's the kind of issue that I'm trying to address.
So you act as a consultant, right?
That's right.
Amongst many consultants in our industry. How do you differentiate or try to differentiate yourself?
I think the industry is still heavily relying on these introducers who are introducing clients for commission. And I think it's not only unethical, but also a bit dangerous as well for the client. Because first of all, I am motivated to advocate for my partners who are paying the most amount of commission. And I have seen it so many times that I know that solution would be better fitting the client, but they're not paying me that much commission, or they aren't paying me commission at all. So I'm motivated to talk against a good solution, tricking my clients. Don't worry, trust me, because I'm a payment expert. I'm advising you what you need. They trust me due to the lack of knowledge or because they don't know better. And I am selling them a solution which doesn't fit, and maybe the client is going to have problems later, blocked funds, more risk that we are not talking about. But I'm making my money. And this is the problem that I see a lot in this industry, that it's not just an introducers, but the gateway is selling a gateway, is selling a gateway, is selling an acquirer. So oftentimes merchants think that, oh, great, so I'm optimizing my risk. I have like 10 different payment providers, but at the end of the day, they are all leading to the same acquirer.
Yeah.
But they are being sold under different brand names, under different prices, terms and conditions. So the merchant falsely has this feeling of confidence that, okay, great, I've got a payment orchestration platform, I'm routing on different providers. But if something happens with that one provider, then you don't have any solution. But who is the one who is telling you that? Obviously, the gateway is not going to tell you that, hey, I'm selling you this four different looking solution, that it's all the same, and I'm tricking you. So that's what I'm missing. That there are a lot of advisors who are taking advantage of the lack of knowledge of the merchant, and this is just not right. So what we are doing as consultants, we are independent, unbiased, and we honestly can not just test the solutions, question them, negotiate the fees on behalf of you, not just for myself. I got you the best fee, but I'm cutting, I don't know, 1% in the middle. So I think we are one of the very few consultants who are actually trying to keep this ethical, transparent, and independent. And this shows in the quality as well, because it's no longer just find a payment provider, option 1, 2, 3, but why do you need a payment provider? Let's talk to your existing providers. Let's see your payment steps. Let's see your orchestration. Let's fix you first. And once you are fixed, based on how banks and payment providers think, now we can get to the point that, do you really need a new provider? Do you really need it on that price? Or you think that you could get that price, but actually it's not really viable. So I'm trying to fix the merchants first to be desirable enough for safer, cheaper, better solutions, and optimize their payment routes and build a strategy around payments and banking first before options 1, 2, 3 comes. And it's a different approach, but it looks like that it's much more safe, cost-effective, and sustainable on the long term. And we talk about scalability, for example. Let's say that there's a new payment provider, but they can only handle up to, 1 million.
Yeah.
What are you going to do, right? So we plan for that. Okay, if we reach 1 million, then what's going to be the next one? So we build contingency plans as well, not just like, this is a provider, send all your volume, you're good, but be careful, because if that happens, if this happens, be careful, because this is actually the same channel. So we put things in a different perspective than the traditional consultants that, hey, I work with 3 partners, integrate, and we are hope for the best.
Yeah. I believe, I'm kind of curious on your view, I believe that you can also have an introduction business where you are a little bit more transparent on your revenue model, and where not your sole interest is to gain the highest commissions, but where you also have attention for the long-term sustainability of a merchant. So you might have good connections with acquirer A, which helps you understand that that might not be the best option for that merchant. While short-term, it might actually be much more interesting for you as an introducer. If you have certain ethical standards, in my view, you can act as an introducer in that way. But I'm curious to how you see that.
You can cut this out. You can cut this out.
No, like
No. I'm just thinking that there's an inherent conflict of interest, because you might be ethical. But when you scale up, you're hiring 5 salespeople. They're not going to talk against their own pocket, right? At one point, you're reaching that level when you're selling whoever pays you most. And usually, higher the risk, higher the profits. So if you have a new partner who is giving you 1 bit more commission, 10 euro more commission, maybe not you as a founder, but your sales team, at one point, they are going to be motivated to sell someone who is higher risk, a bit shaky, taking on more, questionable clients, but they are making, giving you better commission because they're hungry for business. And what I have seen, unfortunately, is that if you are like an established good payment provider, I can name a lot from in the industry, the traditional guys, they might not even need that many of a new clients. So they're not going to talk to you as an individual introducer. Maybe not you, but obviously you're an established company, but with some random introducer circulating in conferences that, hey, I know a bank account, because they don't want to work with those introducers because they are unregulated, because they can overpromise, ruin the reputation, because for whatever reason, compliance reason, I don't know what kind of clients they are bringing. So what I see, that the safer, the bigger, the more established the payment provider, usually they might actually pay less and less commission to the introducers, which means that there is a inherent conflict of interest, that I'm no longer advising on who is safe and established and big, but I'm going for the smaller boutique in the independent.
But it's exactly, I think that's exactly what I mean. And I'm not going to cut this out because it's very substantive. Okay. I think you can also realize that the long-term stable solutions might make you gain less short-term, but will make you much more sustainable long-term. Will make the merchant sustainable, but also you as an introducer.
Whatever pays the bills.
Yeah.
I think so. So if obviously if you're motivated to bring the client to some, but then we see that the merchant is changing, the volume is changing. They are going to new markets. The payment provider is changing. They are changing their risk appetite. How many times it happens that we used to take whatever subscription business from Tuesday, we don't.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do? So it is up to the management to set some kind of motivation level for the salespeople to do the right thing. And right now, it's not regulated.
No.
That's the problem. Yeah. So if you're going out in the wild and looking for payment providers, chances are you're going to find an introducer or an accountant or your lawyer who you don't even think that they get a kickback of recommending a solution for recommending a bank account or a payment provider. And you don't even know that in this story, you are the product. You are being sold to the highest bidder. And that's I think it's something definitely to pay attention to.
No, I get that. So when companies say that they focus more on payments optimization, payment strategy, isn't that often basically another way of saying we're going to cut costs? We're going to optimize our costs. Payment providers are way too expensive.
Don't we all want to cut costs, right? We are trying to save some money as much as we can. But I think the problem here is that whoever is making a decision is only taking into consideration their own KPIs.
Yeah.
So what I mean, I'm a finance person, right? My goal is to optimize costs. Got the budget, find the cheapest provider. Do I really care that for winning 0.5% or 1% of my processing fees, the tech team needs to sweat blood for 9 months to figure out the APIs? Or do I really care that that provider might be a bit chicken and leave it to legal, leave it to compliance? So again, there is a conflict within an organization between different departments of choosing a new provider or routing or a payment orchestration. And it is very hard to find a person who sees all the interdependencies between areas in an organization. So whatever is good for finance might be bad for compliance, or legal says that, okay, these terms and conditions cannot be accepted, when actually risk is that's good because, they are saving us. So that's why I'm arguing that there has to be a central figure who is seeing all the payment processes from the beginning to the end, understanding that, okay, if I change this, then it's going to affect that, and put things in a holistic view, because right now it's very fragmented. And that's why I see that there are bad decisions being made. And yes, as you said, everybody's concentrating on the cost. But on what price? What are you sacrificing on, for the cost? There is no ideal solution. You have to give somewhere. I can actually find a provider for you, which is, I don't know, the cheapest, but they don't pay you for 2 weeks. How would you feel about that? Or it is very, very cheap, but I don't know, your accounting team needs to spend months and months to reconcile their PDF reports because they don't have an API to connect to your CRM system. So you need to see that what you got for what you give.
Yeah. So payments is never approached by one single person.
Exactly.
Which is why you read your exactly that chief payment officer. You wrote it a few years ago.
It actually came out in September 2025. Yeah, it's a brand new concept. Yes, but that's exactly what I'm arguing about. That there has to be a central figure with enough seniority to say that, wait a minute, let's see things from a bigger perspective, from a bird's eye view. I understand that we've got a company in Singapore, one in Dubai, one in Delaware, one in Cyprus, and one in France. But how the money moves through the whole organization, have a bit of understanding on the taxes as well, have a bit of understanding on the compliance, knows a bit about tech, understands the data security, talks to the product, understands the customer requirements and the customer experience, and puts this all together to make the relevant decision, which is the best for the company as a whole. So what I argue is that the organization is like a body, and the blood is the payment, because that actually reaches every area of the organization. So you need to see what are the blockages, what are the problems, what are the opportunities, which is the route that it should be taken. Every time, money moves, that triggers risk and triggers fees. So there has to be a cardiologist in this who is overseeing the whole process and alerts the organization before a problem even appears, because they know that, hey guys, don't open something with this kind of provider because they only regulated on the whatever country we never even heard of. If something goes wrong, how are we going to get you our money? Yes, finance, I know it's cheaper, and yes, compliance, I know it's great because they onboard us in 2 days, but something doesn't add up. Right now, this person is missing. So that's why the book is called The Chief Payment Officer, the role, which doesn't exist, but should. Because I think today, everybody has problems with payments and banking. Every single company at one point, if you're going abroad, will face blocked funds, frozen funds, compliance issues, onboarding issues, documents are not perfect, delayed transfer. There is going to be a problem. So go ahead of the problem, because as you grow, the problems are getting more and more expensive if you don't address them. In the same way that if you don't take care of your heart, at one point it gives up on you. So that's an analogy.
The difference might be everyone is aware you need to take care of your heart. Many people might not be aware you need to take care of payments.
There you go. Exactly. So that's the important part, that at least talk about it. At least people should understand that there's an elephant in the room. Everybody has a problem with it. Let's address it. At least ask your question. When was the last time you negotiated your fees with your provider? When was the last time you went back to your bank that you opened 10 years ago when you started your business and said, hey, what do you have for me? Fintech is changing. You are changing. The bank is changing. The regulation is changing. Everything the payment options are changing. Why are you still using those systems that you had 10 years ago? Why? Why do you have 5 million on one bank account when you know that something goes wrong with that bank, all of your funds are going bust? Why? And those are just the basic, very surface level questions. But if you really need to understand what is the risk that you are facing every day without even knowing it, you do need to see things from a payment and banking perspective, because they can actually ruin your business in a day.
Isn't that frustrating for you sometimes to each and every time basically share the same message to your clients? Take better care of payments.
Once I start talking to people, that there is a reason, because obviously there's an interest, but I'm trying to grab these forums and these opportunities to talk to everyone, and at least if that, just a fraction of the message arrives there, I already did a lot. And as I said at the beginning, I think there's a problem in the industry, because the less people know about these problems, the better I could get in sales, because they don't understand that I'm overselling. They don't understand what I'm selling. They don't understand that they don't even need what I'm selling. So the fintech industry is still heavily reliant on sales approach. Everything has to be coming out in some way in a monetization. There is no independent education around that, because it's like something academy, this pay workshop, that gateway, PDF explanation of the situation. Someone is writing an article just to sell the product. And this is what I have a problem with, that okay, yes, of course, we are all running businesses here. You need to monetize. But is there any place where I can go and not being sold to? Can I have actually an independent and honest opinion about what's going on? And that's what I started my institute to have this safe space where there is no sales motivation. And that's what I'm advocating for, the standards, and we need to have certificate, a coherent kind of industry when everybody understands that, okay, it's not a problem that I'm talking to a salesperson, but treat that person as a salesperson and look behind of their motivation, what's in it for them to try to sell you something, and make your own decisions based on your own education and your understanding. Do I really need it? Does it really fit in my business? And this is the challenge, really.
People hearing this might argue, okay, Viktoria founded her institute to monetize as well, right? In the end, Viktoria needs to run a business as well. Yeah. So how does it work? You try to facilitate that conversation without any hidden agenda, without any personal interests, but in the same time, you need to pay your bills.
In the same way, when you're going to the doctor should not be the reseller of any kind of medicine. The doctor should be independent enough to say, yes, you need this medicine, or no, you don't need the medicine. So obviously, in that field also, there are some ethical concerns, clearly. That's how the world works. But in an ideal world, you should go to a lawyer to get an independent advice. You pay the lawyer, you see what your options are, and then you manage your situation as you do. In the same way you go to the doctor, the same way when you're going to, I don't know, an independent marketing company who's telling you, you spend that much, you get that much. So you need to have the relevant advisors. It's just, you need to understand that who is monetizing on what. And once you become the product and you are being sold to without you knowing about it, that's the ethical concern. So of course, yeah, I'm running an independent consultancy where the client comes, pays, but for that they know, okay, this is the price I pay and this is the advice that I get. In the same way when you're going to a law firm, an accounting firm, you pay, you get, and then you run your business and everything is transparent. So that's the goal. And the same way with the qualifications as well and the certificate. I pay, I know that I'm not being sold to, it's not a product pitch. These are the things. I get the certificate, I get some kind of independent knowledge, and then I can use it in my own business. So that's basically how we are monetizing on it.
So you basically want to train the future chief payment officers.
Yes. And I want to train the fintech companies as well to understand what is the need of the market. I want to train the chief payment officers. I want to train the founders. I want to train basically everyone who at one point is going to make decisions on payments. It could be compliance, it could be tech, it could be anyone. So that's why we've got obviously different layers of education. Right now we are running the chief payment officer program. Soon we are coming out with our MBA as well, first in the world. MBA really? In payments and banking. Yeah, so like super proud of that. So we are trying to put the academia behind everything that we do. So with the EU certified trainings, when we are in the Emirates, we've got the Dubai Knowledge Hub logo behind the chief payment officer. And I see that we are basically the very few, the only one in the industry who is approaching it from this angle and not creating a tool or selling a new fintech solution. And in this way, we can stay independent and unbiased as much as we can.
Is the payments industry more ready for that compared to 20 years ago?
I think yes, because I see that even the fintech companies are struggling to find talent. There's a perfect salesperson, but who's going to explain them what is SEPA and SWIFT, what is QR code, what is a chargeback, what is a gateway? So I see, again, it's a very, very inefficient way when the poor CFO is trying to create a syllabus and train. They are not even a trainer and write a test and, okay, guys, now you know the industry, go, okay, and advise on that. So there is a problem with salespeople, customer service representatives, for example, when you set up a new EMI, new financial institution, clients start to call you, hey, the money doesn't go through. What money, what account, what's going on? So again, that there is not that much of a training on the industry as a whole. Of course, you can get a training on the card payments and you get into the integrity and what is, PCI DSS and all that. But there is no overall training about what is a bank, what is a gateway, what is a merchant, right? So even the basics sometimes are not put in perspective. And that's what I would like to start, that educate everyone, raise awareness. There's a problem, guys, we need to talk about it. And then provide a solution which is completely independent. So it's not someone's academy or someone's webinar. It is independent certifying bodies, webinar and independent advice.
So if I were a CFO of a mid-sized company, a few hundreds employees, you basically advise me, go find this CPO because sooner or later you will run into trouble.
Yes, or train yourself at least on the basics. So you are
the CPO.
Exactly. Because today, in the same way that a chief product officer cannot get away without knowing the basis of technology, AI, then you can't be a finance person and make decisions blindly on how the money moves without even understanding what's going on. And what I see a lot that everybody is trying to get the answers from the poor treasurer. And again, treasurers are also not trained on the latest, like what is the latest financial license, what is the issue, what is the technology. So a lot of pressure is either on the treasurer or on the CFO, and they're just like, okay, I need to make an optimum decision, but I was never trained on that. I self-sufficiently Google things or talk to AI. But what is the level of that knowledge that I can confidently make decisions on the company's funds of millions? And yeah, I would advise to everyone who ever opened the bank account or sent a payment that time to at least start paying attention to these things, because it is going to bite you sooner or later. You're going to make a bad decision, and a lot of money is on the line. Your money, basically.
So how would it work in practice? Everyone knows the type of decisions CEOs make. Everyone knows CFOs have a certain area of decisions, chief commercial officers, chief product officers, chief revenue officers, but no one knows what chief payment officers do. Let's imagine that this CFO hires a new CPO, chief payment officer, tomorrow. Where would his or her decision power be to avoid the conflicts?
Yeah. It is very similar that a couple of years ago, we were all talking about agile, and there was a whole different approach of how an organization is built up, because agile said that you need to know your product completely, in, out, whatever it affects, a bit of marketing, a bit of compliance, a bit of tech, everything in one person, and these product owners are working together. This is very similar to the concept that I'm introducing, that there has to be a senior figure who is having a full understanding of everything what payments affect, including user experience, risk, compliance, finance, data security, even product development, everything, and then advise the relevant organizational clusters of what is the best decision from a larger perspective. Because what I see that a lot of inefficiencies are happening because everything is so fragmented. Like legal wants to get their own document, finance wants to make decision on the fees, while tech is only hoping that it can be integrated really quick, and the data security is all capped. But there is no senior figure who is overseeing the whole flow. And that's the new concept. This is the new way of seeing things. That why don't you have this cardiologist of the business who is understanding everything from the beginning to the end, and advising to different clusters, or advising back to the management directly. So it's no longer a hierarchy of like finance only does finance, legal only does legal, marketing only does marketing, but try to have a person who is working in between these separate organizational parts. But this is not just my idea. This came, as I said, with the agile. This came with a lot of things. That marketing is no longer marketing, is growth. HR is no longer HR, is people.
Yeah.
So now I see that there is a trend anyway that the organizational parts need to work closer together and have multiple skills to make the optimum decision, instead of just like very deep knowledge in one topic.
Yeah.
and how to work together to build a successful organization.
Yeah. So you believe that I don't know, in 15 years from now, the chief payments officer will be a standard function as CFO is today?
As a product person today, right?
Okay. Yeah.
10 years ago, we had no product. Yeah. Today, they have a chief product officer, and under that, individual contributors for a product. In the same way, there has to be a payment person, because we are so depending on banks and payment providers, and that can literally make or break a business. So it is absolutely utmost importance that you see things from the bank's perspective. You understand how banks think, and how money moves internally, externally, and step up those relevant routes which are the best for the organization as a whole.
Yeah. Well, how banks think, that was the topic of your first book, right?
Yes, exactly. So I told you how banks think. Now I know how to utilize that knowledge. So there's a sequence here.
Yeah. So what is the one of the biggest misconceptions clients might have in terms of what banks think of them?
My money, my rules. So many times I've heard, why are they asking these questions? They have nothing to do with my money. I will decide what am I doing with my own money. Wrong. You live in a society in the same way that you can't just go out and start killing people because there are rules. Yeah. In the same way, you can't just go out and move your money under the radar and then cheat taxes as you want. Obviously, there has to be some rules. So that's the first misconception. The second one is I only need something which is cheaper. As we said previously, there are so many interdependencies that if you're only focusing on cost, you're going to pay so much more in the long term in terms of risk and user experience and reputation damage and data security and whatnot. A third misconception is that finance person, that's it. No, we were told originally I'm an accountant, so I was learning about debit and credit and budgeting and treasury, yes. But what is the latest innovation and what are the licenses between e-money institutions, money service businesses, neobanks? No one teach this to the accountants. So the accountants are like, okay, I'm going to figure it out, and they don't, and it's a very expensive mistake. And the fourth one is that you rely on recommendations instead of doing your own due diligence and fitting the payment providers and banks for your specific needs for your specific organization. Whatever works for your friend, it might be the worst decision for you. You can't just ask around that on a friendly Sunday barbecue from your friend that, hey, I'm looking for a new bank account. Which one is the best? Your friend is not trained enough. Your friend doesn't have the same business as you. Your friend might even target different countries than you. Why don't you speak to the professionals in the same way that you would talk to a professional if it comes to legal problem or you've got a problem with your health and you're going to a doctor? Why don't you treat money in the same way as your health or your legal stand? That's I think those are the main misconceptions.
So when you consult merchants or companies on banking decisions, do you mainly look at risks, or do you rather look at costs? Do you look at functionalities bank can provide? Where is your biggest focus?
Yes, and yes. All of course, right? Because I can't say that, okay, this is great, it costs, but just don't worry about it. Maybe they just disappear with your money. No, of course, you need to address risk scores. You need to educate the client that there are different financial licenses. You know the best, that the EMI is not the same as a PI, is not the same as an MSB, is not the same as a bank, is not the same as a... So there are multiple areas that things can go wrong. And my job is to raise awareness. Hey guys, inefficiency, there's a bottleneck, there is an opportunity, there is a problem that could be something going wrong. In the same way as your legal team can only save you so much when the problem happened. Ideally, you've got the legal team to set up the rules and the contracts before things go wrong, right? You're having a contract not because you trust that person and everything goes wrong. Is like the contract has to have the clauses that what happens if something goes wrong. Let's do the same for payments. Let's think about what happens if that bank goes belly up. There is a war. There is a problem. There is a changing risk appetite. There is a change in your company. From now on, we are no longer targeting Europe. We are going to China. How are you going to get the money out of that? So think proactively, because there's nothing worse than making decisions over your money in a hurry, under pressure, at the last minute, based on someone's advice who think that that's the best. So have a bit more consciousness around your own money.
I was asking that question because my feeling, but I might be totally wrong, my feeling is that risk related to banks is a much more important factor than 20 years ago.
Yes.
And I'm afraid that will not disappear soon.
Yes.
So why do banks consider many businesses as so risky? And what are their reasonings to consider something as risky?
Not many businesses and even people understand that banks are not just there to run another business. Banks are the extension of the government to enforce certain rules, regulations, and laws. They are the ones who are increasing or reducing the interest rate, helping the economy, making different changes in economy. There's a whole industry around it called economics, right? There are like 4 years of like hardcore training to understand how banks decisions can affect a society. So it's a big work. It's a big work. Plus, the banks are basically the policemen of the government. The banks need to figure out if you are cheating your taxes or you're committing any kind of crime, because the easiest way to figure out something goes wrong if you follow the money. So if you see that there is something illegal going on, where are you going to keep them? You can't put a policeman next to each and every business. Are you doing it legally? Are you paying your taxes? No, there has to be some company or someone who is appointed that, okay, I trust you enough to monitor things, report back to me if something is not good, and then we shut it down because we keep a healthy economy. Those are the banks. And that's why there is an enormous pressure on them to make sure that everything is kept in order. They have all the documentation. Otherwise, the regulator comes and gives them the penalty or even revokes their license. So there is a huge pressure on the banks to make sure that I trust you because opportunity that something goes wrong with you is low. So I like you as a client. But at the same time, banks are private institutions. They still need to make money somehow. And as we know, higher the risk, higher the profit. Yeah. So the banks are having this constant balance of like, do I trust you enough? Are you going to ruin my business? But do I earn enough of you? So a lot of times we see that there are a lot of domestic accounts, for example, pensioners, salaries. I'm going to make a lot of money on that, but it gives me a low risk base that then I can improve my portfolio and take a bit of a more risky clients, because overall my portfolio is not going to be super high risk, but I still have some profit. I mean, obviously I'm bastardizing it, but that's the whole goal of the banks, of having enough profit on the price of taking just right amount of risk, and always balance it somehow on the surface. And that's why you see that the bank took you on a Monday and refuses you on a Tuesday. Obviously, these decisions are not public, but in a large scheme of things, that this is how banks think, and this is why banks are asking a lot of questions from you, because their job is to maintain a healthy economy, and they need to report back on the regulator. So it's one thing that you do something wrong and you go down, but the bank doesn't want to go down with you with it.
Oh. What's the biggest concern from banks when looking at businesses?
The opportunity that something can go wrong. So they don't look at you that criminal. They say that, okay, if that happens, what is the likelihood of this happening? And what is the likelihood that I'm going to get burned? I'm getting the penalty of helping you to move money based on that illegal activity, or I'm getting the penalty because I haven't checked enough that you're cheating your taxes. Basically, cheating taxes and committing crime, those are the two main things for the banks that seeing them could go wrong. So they see, okay, that's your business. What about this? Okay, what about that? But who's your shareholder? Is there any opportunity that the shareholder just disappears with the money and not paying the taxes? Okay. So this is the risk. I'm evaluating the risk. I'm setting a certain price for that. And then I'll make a decision that do I take this risk for this price or not? And unfortunately, what I see is that every business is just as good as its weakest link. So when we are talking about fintech companies who are agile, everything is online, they can make with the decisions. They are actually working with the best professionals in the industry. They understand this business better. But when you're going to the traditional banks, where there is a remote village in the middle of nowhere dealing with agricultural businesses, and they might actually make a decision which can ruin the whole banking operation, that's when we see very restrictive decisions. And that's when the bank says, even remotely looking like that, just say no. And so it's a blanket no. And this is what we see as a frustration of the industry. But I'm legal, but it's okay, but nothing can go wrong. But the bank rather not take the risk with all of you, because it's very hard to train every single individual and see every opportunity for failure in every remote branches. And that's when we see that the larger the banks are, usually they have lower risk appetite because they have more to lose as well.
And how do you look at that from an ethical perspective? If you reason that big banks basically act out of fear, you already mentioned it, I'm legal, I'm compliant, I'm doing nothing wrong, but maybe because of, I don't know, my background or the activities I'm into, I'm considered by a bank as slightly elevated risk.
Yeah.
basically then I'm punished for what I'm doing instead of punished for really being illegal.
Yeah. Well, there are two sides of the coin. So first thing for the banks. Obviously, the banks have a lot on their plate and they need to keep their rules, but government saves you. You've got a license. You can actually make money in other ways. You've got this, okay, you deal with all of these domestic accounts, but then I allow you to do fractional banking, make some money on somewhere else. So it's a win-win basically for the government and for the bank to work together, but also help the society. So it's a weird kind of collaboration between the government, society, and the banks. When we are seeing the merchant's perspective, you're an individual business. You can say, well, it's right or not right. At the end of the day, you're too small to make any life-changing decisions. Like, there are so many things in this life which is unfair. War, catastrophe, I don't know, there's an earthquake and, your business goes in flames or virus or whatnot. So you as a business owner, your responsibility for yourself or for your shareholders, if you're a limited company, is to make the best out of your capabilities. Fair or not fair? What am I going to do? Okay, this is the activity. Okay, which bank do I trust? Which payment provider do I trust enough to do all the fun? And you understand how this whole system works, and then you can actually make the optimum decision. So yes, you can say that, but I'm legal. But just because you're legal, it doesn't mean that you are desired by banks or you are going to find a bank that you want to work with. So that many times I see, for example, coming from my tax background, tax advisor goes there, open an account in, I don't know, open a company in Panama, open one company in British Virgin Island, get the offshore license, and you're legal. And the merchant has this full sense of security that I'm legal. That's great. I managed to balance it. I'm just right on the edge, but I'm legal. Okay, just because you're legal, it doesn't mean that the banks are running for you because you're still high risk. But the opportunity that you're not going to be legal, it's a very, very thin line. So just because you optimize your taxes, you might actually spend so much more on banking and payment provider fees. But who is going to explain that to you? Because the tax advisor is just, okay, you're legal, your accountant, okay, it's great, legal is, okay, great. But then you go to the banks and payment providers like, no. And how many times I have seen that? Okay, if you got 2 weeks until we are launching, you still don't have a bank. Yes, of course you don't have a bank because the whole operation is running from offshore. Who told you that it's okay? So those are the things that we need to address. And that's what I said. That it has to be a person, an individual figure who is alerting you before things even can go wrong. Like a legal advisor that, okay, but be careful here. In the same way that CPO is coming and said, okay, I understand that you're legal, but be careful because then you might not pay that much taxes, but then look at your bank fees or risk that you're taking on the other side.
So are we complaining too much about banks? Should we just accept reality and face it?
Well, it's not like you can do so much more. I know we can complain about it. We can record hours and hours of content about the problems. Yeah, they all know the problems. Life is not perfect, but as a business owner, you deal with what you get, right? And you try to make the most of it. So your responsibility is to understand what could go wrong, understand what kind of environment you're working at, and then try to do your best based on this.
There's also businesses which might be completely white from a setup perspective, nothing offshore, nothing odd, but their activities are often connected with criminal or unethical activities. Yeah. Think about adult merchants, for example, who have difficulties in finding banks. What would your message be to such companies?
The good thing with these merchants that you already know that there is a problem. So whoever is in high risk, including gambling and investment and subscription business and education or even travel, after COVID, they became high risk as well, or medicine or pharmaceutical, or any kind of high risk industry. You already know that the biggest part of your business challenges are going to come from payments and banking. So you already know that, okay, I need to do something here. So first of all, you need to understand what is the activity and what does it come with, right? So that's one thing. But the challenge with these high risk merchants, what I know is that those are the loudest of, but I'm legal.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that you're illegal, but you're just then there, right? So things can go wrong really quick. You got clearly higher risk of reputation damage or money laundering if you're operating in a high risk industry than you're selling bagels in a high street, right? So you feel that okay, the bank is taking more risk with you, and this is the beauty here that 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 you're going to have problems with payments and banking, yet try to operate the business in an environment which is the safest and the most cost effective and the most scalable for you as the business. As I said, it's good because the businesses understand that there is an inherent risk which is coming with the activity, but that's where I see a lot of inefficiencies with the introducers. I know someone who knows someone, and trust me, bro, I got you. Shady technologies, inception of payment providers, of a gateway, and that's when it gets really, really complex. But basically, high risk is high risk for everyone involved. Just because you're a high risk, it doesn't mean that you're going to work with perfect banks and payment providers. So if you're high risk, whoever is dealing with a high risk is going to be high risk for you as well. So you need to really find the balance there.
Are there also businesses which are technically legal but will never be able to find the bank?
Yeah, I mean, if there is a need, there is a way. But I have seen a lot of times, mainly before crypto, for example, it was regulated, that the legal team said that don't worry about Europe, go offshore, get the license. And there were a lot of hedge funds, crypto hedge funds or crypto investment firms regulated, for example, in the Cayman Island. Your crypto, which is high risk, now you're offshore, which is extra high risk, and now you tell your clients to invest in me. It's even if you're running your business legally and ethically, just because the only bank or payment provider who is willing to work with you is also a bit questionable, your whole business can go down if they freeze your funds or they disappear with the money. Because I have seen that, so unfortunately that too. So it's not just about your business, but who are your partners who are handling your client funds or making decisions of your operation, which is your reputation at the end of the day towards your clients. So it's a very, very fine balance. And yes, I have seen many times that you are legal, but just no one wants to work with you. And that's
Because you have pushed the boundaries on different...
There's always a reason. Because if you're going, let's say that you're a startup, you figure out something new, you're innovating, this life-changing, record-breaking, something great innovation. But you still need to convince that compliance officer who is taking your application, because if the person is looking at your application with the 60 other one that they have to process on the same day, and they say, I don't really understand that, you're going to get rejected.
Yeah.
So your responsibility as a business owner, yes, innovate, yes, go and push the boundaries, and yes, question the status quo. But in the same way, just create some kind of picture to the bank or a payment provider when you look at that and they say, okay, it actually makes sense. Now I'm willing to take the risk with you, because if you can't convince that compliance officer, your business never catches up. And you can innovate. If you can't take it to the market, then you're just as good as your market fit is. So it is, again, coming down to the responsibility of the management to find the balance of like how far I can push the current situation, fair or not fair, and who are the payment providers and banks who are willing to work with me, and how do I fit in this society in a larger scheme of things, from the payment and banking perspective.
What have you seen most often from banks who finally have accepted certain companies? Them closing again these companies, or them freezing funds and asking lots of questions?
Of course.
So how afraid should I be to be closed tomorrow as a high-risk person?
Very. Even as a low-risk merchant, to be honest with you. You had a client, they were selling e-commerce stuff, like jumpers and makeup stuff.
Yeah.
And one day, they introduced a new product, which was like a toenail fungi cream, something like that. Pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
The whole business went on hold just for one product. And of course, the banks and payment providers, they don't have to justify their decisions to you. So at one day, my client went to work, tried to log in, and the account is completely frozen. He's like, what's going on? So we had to go through the tens of thousands of products until we figured out that, this is the problem. You always have to be afraid that one day your bank might close your account. And not just because you are doing something wrong. He said maybe the bank's risk appetite is changing. Maybe there is a war, there is a sanction, there is something that the intermediary bank had some issues, even though that you are, for example, in Switzerland sending money to the Netherlands. Maybe the intermediary bank is going through whatever sanctioned entity or a problematic place. You need to always have some contingency plan because nothing is forever. Your business is changing and everything is changing.
And what would your advice be to such companies next to obviously finding or making sure that they have backup solutions?
Have a strategy. Like you have a strategy for marketing, you have a content strategy, you've got a sales strategy, have a strategy for payments and banking and understand how the money moves. And in case that there is a problem, how are you still surviving? Don't just trust blindly in your providers. Don't worry, I got you. Of course they say that because they make money out of you, right? So their job is to sell to you, right? But your responsibility to make decisions for your own business to see that, okay, this can go wrong, that could go. And you only see that if you put things in perspective and see your whole business from a bird's eye perspective to see all these inefficiencies and bottlenecks. And you need to think proactively. Another example, we had a startup client and they said, don't you worry, I've got some people from Fiverr who are coding, the website. We are using whatever pay. It's new on the market, but I trust them fully because the guy lives next door or something. And then the startup catched up. And there were hundreds of thousands of clicks on the website. And there is nothing worse when the people are there, they try to pay you and they can't. So then they needed to spend like a month and months to redo the whole payment stack, to get a payment provider who is handling all of those hundreds of thousands of clicks in the same day, which is not breaking, dealing with all of those reputation damage. Oh, I wanted to buy something, but I couldn't. So yes, you do need to think ahead in the same way that you talk to a legal advisor before you even start an operation. Talk to a payment person at least just to be aware of those problems which could come up later.
If you would have to find out or to set up the whole banking framework from scratch, would you do it the same as it's being built up today?
It depends on the client. I mean, this is what I do. 12 hours a day. I'm seeing things based on experience and based on market feed that I understand that, okay, if you've got this business, you're in this phase or startup, scale up, large business, what could go wrong? And then put the strategy behind it. In the same way as like a content strategy is not the same thing for an e-commerce startup merchant and the large law firm, which is known worldwide. You always have to find the payment strategy for you based on what's the target market, what are your activities, what risk, high risk, low risk. By the way, this is also a very subjective category because for me, whatever high risk, maybe it's low risk for you, I don't know. So you understand this business enough to make the relevant decisions and build a strategy, understanding where the money comes from, how much, half them, what currency, who is holding it, what's the license, how does it leave, do I have capital controls, do I have sanctions, what are the interdependencies? So at least ask these questions once every 6 months as a bare minimum, just to see that what could go wrong.
Let's say I'm a Spanish merchant doing business with Spanish customers, having a few Spanish local partners, and tomorrow I expand. I get customers from abroad. I have fulfillment partners in East European countries, and it's going great. But I still have my Spanish banks used to the old legacy setup. What do I need to do to make sure I'm fit for tomorrow?
Well, first of all, see what your bank capabilities are, because whatever is working locally, Bizum, for example, in Spain, it might be the word decision in Poland where they use Black, for example, right? So you understand the local requirement, the local customer preferences. You always need to plan how the money gets back to the head office because you're making maybe a killing in the Middle East, but you can't get the money back to the headquarters. How are you going to pay your salaries, right? You also need to make sure that there is a foreign exchange efficiency. So when you're dealing with the Eastern European countries, maybe they use their own currency. Who is exchanging that currency? Do you need to exchange that currency? How are you moving the funds again back to Europe and move it back to the headquarters? So there are multiple aspects of that, but don't forget, just because you are legal in Spain, you might not be legal in other areas. I mean, within the EU, more or less, yeah, maybe. But I have seen, for example, vaping merchants that one country is legal, another country is not legal. So do your legwork, talk to your compliance team, because that could be also a problem that you're not even aware. And most importantly, I know that the traditional way is test the product, go to a new country and then spend some marketing budget and pay some for the paid ads and see what the traction. But you can't really measure that without having a payment method. Your marketing could be absolutely perfect and the clients are there trying to pay you and they can't. You still have no traction, because how you're measuring market fit, how many people actually paid for the product, paid how? Yeah. So if you don't think about the payment first and then release the marketing budget, maybe you're just wasting a lot of money for no reason. Because I have seen a lot of clients, they just went to one country just to find out that the payment provider is actually bringing, on a larger scheme of things, less profit, than they go somewhere else. So these could be also very important decisions to see that, okay, I'm going to, I don't know, Vietnam, there the payment processing is 5. I'm going to Japan, there the payment processing is 3. Maybe it's more expensive to advertise in Japan, but because I'm winning 2%, which in perspective of the profit margin could be 20% win, then I don't really care about the taxes. I don't really care about the marketing expenditure. What I care about is how much money at the end of the day stays with my company. So those are the things that you need to ask, and this is more now than just the finance decision, than just the technological integration, than just a number on the contract that, okay, it's 5%, 3%, go with the 3%. So that's what companies start to realize, that this is also very important.
It comes back to the chief payment officer.
So there you go. Everything goes back to the chief payment officer, of course. So, but yeah, that's the idea here.
Yeah. And when you look at cross-border payments and how that whole infrastructure is set up, is that are there structural problems in that infrastructure? Is it okay-ish?
Where do I start, right? If I were to say where that one thing is legal in Italy and it's still legal in Norway, it's the payment industry is so fragmented. Different customer preferences, different financial rules and regulations. Whatever you can do in the States, cannot do in Europe, and not even just in Europe, but certain countries. My favorite is when the client says, yes, I'm targeting Asia. Okay, which country? It's like that. There's so many countries with so many different preferences, with different approach. You can't just target Asia. So that's also adding a lot of complexity to the problem. So you're dealing with your internal payments in a way, but when you're going global, it is very, very hard to figure out that what fits in one country, what doesn't fit in another, and how you actually optimize it. And that's what I'm saying. It's a living and breathing thing. Just because you've got the perfect payment and banking strategy on a Monday, regulation changes. New financial licenses are introduced. War erupts, then something happens, and then you always need to revise. Plus, technology is changing. Maybe they are coming up with AI payments and you need to integrate that, because then you're missing out. Maybe there is a SEPA instance. All of a sudden, within a year, now we are spending money, sending money to each other completely free of charge immediately. So those are the environment changes that you also need to adopt, because if you still work like how you worked 2 years ago, I'm telling you, you're already missing out. And I bet that you have a lot of costs that you could save, but you're just not doing it.
Yeah. Many companies might, to come back on what I previously said, might think, okay, I'm just adding a few PSPs to make myself resilient, to be prepared. Can that also be a wrong decision?
Yes, in the same way that, okay, I'm taking vitamins, I'm taking vitamin C, I'm taking vitamin D, I'm taking whatever multivitamin, and I will manage my health. Yeah, it helps. it's better not doing. It's better doing it than not. But overall, you do need to have a bit more consciousness behind it. Don't just add more payment providers and hope that they will sort out your business, because that's not their job. They can advise and they can help, but obviously there is a customer and provider relationship here, which ends at one point. So no payment provider is coming to save you and set up the whole payment stack for you and advocate that, okay, our solution only does that, but there are betters out there. You need to find what is the best for you, because you can't expect your payment provider to bring a competition, even though that they know it might be better for you.
Yeah. So you've spoken a couple of times about the Wild West in payments, a lot of advisors, introducers, and so on, and the lack of regulation.
Mm-hmm.
Do I understand correctly that you basically advocate for a regulatory framework similar to, advisors on investment, which should also exist for advisors on payments?
Yes. Strong, very certain, yes. Because this industry is getting more and more complex, more and more confusing. Monies are on the line. And in the same way as you would not take investment advice from someone who does not have the investment advisory license, because they advise you something and your money disappears, or insurance from a non-regulated insurance broker, you need to have regulation and standards around payments and banking advice as well. Nothing wrong with introducers, but you have to disclose that, yes, my job is to give you free advice, but it's actually not free. I'm making money out of you.
Yeah.
There has to be some kind of ethics. There has to be some responsibility, even though PSD2 says the introducer is just as responsible in case something goes wrong. Somehow it's still not enforced. When you're going to any kind of conference today, you see that there are individual introducers who are roaming around saying that, hey, I've got a partner who's taking this. And even if you're a payment provider, when we're talking about a high-risk industry, introducers are taking half of your profit, right? A huge amount of money. And there is no regulation which stops them going around and even ruin your reputation just because the competition is giving them €1 more. Or overpromise something on your services, then the client comes to you and I thought that you have that, I thought we agreed on this. And then you have to comfort the client that, yeah, but that was an introducer. But what do you mean the introducer? That's a payment expert. No, because, we are working different. So there is a lot of friction points which are not being addressed at the moment. There is no one regulatory body who said that, okay, there has to be a code of ethics, there has to be best practices, there has to be frameworks. As I said at the beginning, we don't even have a common understanding on the basic expressions. When I say gateway, the client understands a regulated payment provider, you understand the technology provider, someone else understands a white label. Like it's a mess. And that's why I'm advocating for that. Can we have some standards? Can we have some commonly agreed practices? Can I, as a company, when I'm hiring a head of payment, have some kind of reference point that this person is educated enough to make decisions on my money? Because as we said, the accountants are way behind and the education is not covering even the basics. So there has to be something what the industry is addressing, because there are also a lot of independent introducers and advisors working in separation, competing against each other. So again, there is not that much of a motivation of working together because then you're stealing my clients kind of approach. And this has to be sorted out, I think, from the regulatory level of benefiting the whole industry and the society at large, because then there are not going to be confused merchants who are going to a payment aggregator and the monies go disappear and you don't even know what happened. So there has to be some kind of like safety built in. And yes, the regulators need to step in, independent consultants need to advocate to do the right thing, and the industry needs to filter out who is ethical, who is doing the right thing, and who is not. But obviously, it's a long way. I'm doing my bit, obviously, with the trainings and advocating for the independent and unbiased consultancy. And that's why I'm welcoming anyone who wants to join this mission, where no one can take advantage of the lack of knowledge of someone else and cash out on the uneducated clients, and this is just wrong.
Didn't we, as an industry, create this Wild West also a little bit ourselves?
Yes.
Exactly.
They grew too fast, too quick,
Yeah.
I think. Because all of a sudden in 10 years, we've got 20 different licenses, different loopholes, a bit of crypto, a bit of stablecoin, independent advisors who are taking advantage of the situation. So I think what we see is the Wild Wild West because now everything grew. And naturally, now this is the time when the regulator or an independent body steps in and starts sorting out things. We have seen this with crypto. We have seen this with the gold rush. Something happens. Everybody's taking advantage, lupo, and then somehow the industry sorts out itself. So I think this is the stage where we are now.
Yeah. So ideally, you would be basically facilitating the framework once this regulation comes up, by providing education, by providing the MBA you already mentioned, certification. So how does it work right now? If I want to be certified, I come to you.
Exactly.
You train me, you certify me, but what does your certification mean to the?
Right, so it's a government back. So we've got the EU certification. So the EU, Cyprus is backing up our trainings, and the Dubai Knowledge Hub also has a backup for our trainings. So it's a government-backed training. When we're coming out with MBA, this government-backed training, quality training, is meeting the academia, which is the MBA in payments and banking, and creating this certification. We are opening up the platform for professionals to join in, add to the framework, add to the best practices, and have a safe space where we can finally talk about this. And with this move, we are inviting the regulator as well to help us to develop further with more and more government involvement and making this whole industry transparent and ethical as much as we can. So we are just growing now, but yeah, as I said, I'm inviting every industry professional that please contribute, because the more we talk about it, the more we advocate for this, the more it becomes the thing. And then merchants naturally and fintech companies naturally act on it. And they are seeking a unified training and certification standards that they can adhere to.
Are there specific regulators who have more attention for this?
I think the financial regulator is going to step in somehow. The same kind of regulator who is regulating now the investment advisors or the insurance brokers, that kind of regulator needs to step in and realize that there is a huge inefficiency, which obviously benefits the larger society, and therefore that's why the regulator needs to step in, because now there are a lot of misconceptions, issues, problems, lost funds, broken things, license loopholes that it needs to put things in perspective. And yes, Europe is one thing. Obviously, we are active in the Middle East as well. But I think sooner or later it has to be a global thing, and everybody needs to join in somehow. That someone from Asia could only give advice on European payment providers and licenses if they prove enough that they have the relevant knowledge and experience to do so. Otherwise, why are you misleading the public, leading it to disaster, financial disaster? So it actually benefits the larger society and the larger business, because in an environment when merchants cannot thrive because there is no payment or bank who is helping them to do so, it also limits the economy's growth. So it is for everyone's benefit to really understand that how money moves and how banks and payment providers can work with the industry.
It's a big dream, but also a beautiful dream.
It is. Why not?
What if people were to listen to this and think, okay, I have a company. I don't know if I really spend enough attention on payments. Are there specific questions they can ask themselves to stress test themselves?
Yes. Obviously, in the same way as you are doing home health checks. And if you notice something, okay, let's go to the doctor. I would say, what is the stage of your company now? Imagine you're catching up. Imagine you are tenfold the clicks of a day of your interested parties who do try to pay you online. Can you handle it? When was the last time that you negotiated your fees, or even asked your current providers, hey, what's new? What else you have for me? Because if If more than 6 months ago, there's a problem. How much money do you trust right now with one bank or payment provider? I know you get, the more you process, the more you keep, the better the fees are. But are these discounts really justify the risk that if that bank or payment provider goes belly up tomorrow, how much is the opportunity cost that you're losing on this one? Or, for example, now in the uncertainty of the war, if something happens with your bank and there is a delay of a payment, or you can't even access your money for 2 weeks for whatever reason, because they bombed the headquarters of the bank or the intermediary bank is in a sanctioned country or whatever reason, how is it going to affect you if you can't access your money for 2 weeks? So those are just the basic questions to start thinking of, like, who is doing the foreign exchange, currency exchange for you? If it's your high street bank, definitely there's an opportunity to optimize there. Or, for example, ask your accountant, how are we reconciling the payment providers? Because if you have more than 2 or 3, even in the automation, there could be some hiccups, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. One click and no, I should have this amount and it's this amount, let's go in. How much is the time that you're actually spending right now of reconciling your bank and payment provider records with your CRM system? So if you start asking those questions, at least you realize that if any of these questions make you go, uh-oh, you need to talk to a professional. That's a non-negotiable then, because there are some monies that you're bleeding out without knowing it.
And what kind of big mistakes, if not the biggest mistake, have you seen over the past years?
The larger the company, the less they care and the more bureaucratic it becomes. So that's when we see that they're using the same payment gateway as 20 years ago without negotiating any fees on that. Big issues. Or, for example, this menu reconciliation is coming back all the time. Or, for example, not even understanding what are the differences with the financial license. We only trust banks. Okay, but you know that the EMIs have, the security of the client funds secured in a bank, and the bank can't even use it for fractional banking. Oh, I didn't know that. So those are the very classic mistakes for large companies. Startups, watch me, I know it. I'm going to program my own gateway, or I'm going to cut costs here and there, and don't you tell me because I know. Those are the startup mistakes, instead of the imposter syndrome is that I know it all syndrome. That's usually a startup problem. And when we are going to scale up, that's when we really see that someone is a CPO, but it's not officially appointed. It's either the product guy or the admin person or the finance person who's self-educating. And without that person, the whole thing is about to collapse. But management doesn't even know that how valuable is that knowledge that someone is picking up the pieces and then making sense of things. So those are the classic mistakes of the different stages of the company that I have seen.
I found it very interesting to speak about so many topics with you today.
Yeah.
And I'm in full support of your search for ethics in this industry.
Thank you.
And I truly hope that the Chief Payments Officer will be a standard role soon with your support and with support of others as well. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening and watching us. People can find you on LinkedIn and on PSPangels.com.
That's right.
There you go. Or look us up on eflow.com. And until next time.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Viktoria.